All right, Seb. So with the Microsoft Graph, you can access the data that we create every day in our work in Microsoft 365, right?
Yep, absolutely.
One of the way to access data is to use an SDK, right? So what would be the benefit, would you say, for using the Microsoft Graph JavaScript SDK in your app?
I think the top benefit is to really simplify the developer's life, to be able to discover the surface that exists, to be able to do some complex operations without having to craft all of your objects and everything. And luckily today, I'll be able to show you some highlights of how you can build an app with the JS SDK and how this kind of relates to connecting to Microsoft Graph, getting data out of Microsoft Graph, and that's it. So
Uh, yeah. So will you also show auth? Because if there is one thing that everybody, for some reason, finds hard is auth. Like, how do you get a token? Will you also show that?
I will definitely show a little bit of auth, but also how we can leverage some other tooling that exists at Microsoft to simplify a lot of the authentication pieces that are sometimes a little bit more complex into apps to make sure that in the end, auth is not hard with the Microsoft Graph.
Cool. So how about we see it in action?
Let's dive into the demo. Here I have a super extremely simple HTML file. That HTML
Okay.
has basically in there basically nothing, a couple of styles, and has HTML and a couple of scripts at the end. We're doing a very, very, very simple application. But let me show you the app, and then afterwards we're going to dive in and understand a little bit some of the pieces here. So
Perfect.
the app is the following: a big, beautiful sign in with Microsoft button, thinking that here I'm already logged into any Microsoft 365 tenant, and I just click on sign in with Microsoft. What happens here? I'm getting a prompt, and automatically it says, welcome my name here. How beautiful is that?
Excellent.
Uh,
So it even knows who you are.
Exactly. I'm already signed in to this application. So it remembers me. There's a system of a caching for the authentication. So it remembers who I am. And then it shows my name. But how do you get the name of someone, right? Well, how do you do that? Well, we do that through Microsoft Graph, through the currently authenticated user, and we go straight into the Microsoft Graph. So if I go back into the code and we go in one of the files, which is called graph.js, we're going to find this extremely simple function. Here we're getting the user, the information about the user. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to ensure that we have the right scopes or the right permissions to get access to the currently logged in user. As the Microsoft Graph is an OAuth 2.0 secured web API, we need to specify which type of permissions we have right there. And then afterwards, we just simply return through our Graph client. We're using the SDK here. We're asking the API, so /me, the full API will be graph.microsoft.com/v1/me. I'm selecting the fields here, so we're using OData words here, verbs on which properties I want to select, and I just do a get. And automatically, I'm automatically getting this specific information that I can then print onto my app. How cool is
But I
that?
guess so that is cool and it's really simple. But there's the one thing that we haven't seen yet:
Yeah.
token. Where do we get token from? Because you mentioned Graph is OAuth 2.0, right? So you need like it is an API that is available anonymously. So you need to authenticate.
Yes.
Where is the token?
So we're utilizing the token to get the token. We're using the auth.js file in here, which we're using MSAL. So the Microsoft authentication library for JavaScript. We're using a flavor of it called the MSAL browser, where here we just have to specify what is our client ID, what's our tenant ID, where do we want to be redirected, and the rest of this application will take care of all the redirection, creating the payload, sending the payload to the authentication endpoints, getting them back, managing caching, managing also exceptions. Think about you want to access a highly secured SharePoint site, or you have MFA enabled on Exchange Online. Well, we're going to make sure that we do send the right payload, receive the right responses, react to it, send another payload if we need to have, for example, an MFA confirm on your phone. So we're using MSAL to do this. Don't craft it yourself. Do it straight. Do it with what we offer.
Absolutely, right? So in other words, with the SDK, we don't need to worry about plumbing. We can focus on building our app, right? So what else can we get from both Graph, and what else can we do through the SDK?
Absolutely. So let's go right back into our demo and continue a couple of the different here. One of the things we see a lot in applications is to see faces of people, to always have the same person in every app. We see that a lot in Office 365. So for example, here, I can get the profile picture with a very similar call, which is exactly the same type of call we've been doing before, but now we're just hitting another endpoint. In that case, /me/photo/value. We're getting a base 64 out. We craft a nice image, and we do it. Something we can do also is to start traverse the graph and understand how, not just me, but how am I related to other people, like my direct reports as a manager, or get my manager and get their direct reports. Same thing here. And then when I click on show direct reports, now I have access to all of my direct reports. All that data lives within Microsoft 365. And finally, with exactly the same thing, I can get user files to my OneDrive for Business through this endpoint right here, where I can see show files and then apps and all of this. So not only you can access to one piece of data, but you can access to anything that lives in Microsoft 365 with a single API. I don't have to learn all of that. Awesome. Well, thanks, Waldek.
Thank you, Seb.
Cheers.